All right, gonna pull the motor out of this right here Camaro today on the gravel. It's Sunday. I spent most of the day Saturday getting stuff that I need. I got an engine stand from an old buddy of mine I went to high school with, 40 bucks. And then Austin, who's doing the LS1 Camaro turbo, he loaned me his cherry picker. That's a big one. It's got air and everything. I don't think my air tank would work it though. So, and I got plyboard. Plyboard was the most expensive. Wood is ridiculous right now. But I gotta have that to roll that stuff around on. Actually, that rolls around pretty good in the gravel, believe it or not. But I don't think it's going to roll around in the gravel pretty good. We get a lot of weight on it. But actually, I'm lifting the body off the car, so really don't need to roll it around. But anyway, got some dollies. These are 1,000-pound dollies. I don't know how in the world they could hold that much weight, looking at how they're made. But we'll have one under the cross the K member for the motor and one under the transmission. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll get this pulled out and take it apart and see what's wrong with it. I can't even guess what it is, but I heard some clunking. A lot of people think, well, could it be the transmission? Could it be the converter? I did just have the converter done. I mean, I guess it's possible, but I've never heard of a transmission or torque converter locking a motor or keeping the motor from turning over. But I mean, who knows? Maybe I've just never heard about it and it is the thing. But I heard some clanking that come from the front end of the motor. So, and this one right here, after I pull that one out, I'm going to pull the transmission out of this one. Circle D, I sent the video to Circle D of it, the RPM drop and it blowing through the converter, and they said that it does need adjusted, so they're going to adjust that. And then we're getting valve float again. We had valve float before with the stock ProMax 200 springs, and I put different springs on it and it fixed it, but this cam's quite a bit bigger, so now it's getting valve float again. So Tick Performance said that the valve springs I had would work. I just have to close up the install height on them a little bit to increase the pressure on them. So that'll be next for this, but I got to take all this out and get at least a coat of paint on that bare metal that's in the floorboard. So, but I can't do that until it warms up, and it's not going to warm up until middle of this week, so I'll be able to get in here and do that. But yeah, let's tear this Camaro apart. Not looking forward to it, but let's get it done. All right, so I got it up in the air. I'm gonna work under the car first. I'm gonna take the drive shaft out, the shifter linkage, and the transmission cross member. Now, if you got the 4L60, you got to undo the torque arm also, and then your Y pipe, if you got a Y pipe, or the stock pipe that goes down around the motor, you got to undo that. You got to undo any cables that are hooked to the transmission, like the main transmission cable plug, and then the transmission speed sensor, vehicle speed sensor plug. And just make sure that everything that's going to go up with the car is unhooked. Now, you can leave all that stuff plugged in, and you can unhook the computer and a couple of wires under the dash and put the computer on top of the motor. But since all that stuff has to come off anyway, I'm just going to do it while it's in the car. Remove your starter wires, your knock sensor. There's a ground wire under there that you have to undo. Actually, there's a couple. There's one in the front, but your oil level sensor, if you're going to do it that way. If you're going to just unhook those wires under the dash and then put the computer on top of the motor, you don't really have to worry about that. But like I said, I'm gonna unhook all the wiring and set it to the side, and then just drop the motor and transmission down that way. So I don't have to worry about all that. But yeah, let's get down here and undo the drive shaft and transmission cross member, the shifter linkage, and make sure there ain't no wires in the way. I've got a wire, the hot wire running from the fuel pump hot wire kit. I gotta make sure that's all out of the way. And then I'll go over some ground wires I'm gonna undo. Well, after getting in here and looking around a little bit more, there's a hole in the oil pan. So the rod's let go. We're going ahead and get all this out. Went ahead and took the drive shaft out. Now I'm going to take the transmission cross member out. But first, it's actually letting me turn the motor over. I'm going to see if it's going to let me take these torque converter bolts out first. I took the starter out. There's just a power wire that goes here from the battery. And then there's a little ignition wire that goes here. That's pretty much it on that. And I'll show you that underneath. Now it didn't let me take all the torque converter bolts out. It's letting me turn the motor over a little now, but not much. Here's the ignition wire for the starter. This is a ground wire right here. This all comes out of this one harness that comes down from the top passenger side. This is your knock sensor. It went right there. You just squeeze it and it comes unplugged. This is your front O2 sensor. And it goes in the exhaust on the headers. It goes right there. And then this is your rear O2 sensor that reads the oxygen sensor. So that's all the wires for that harness. Now this ground wire is usually bolted up here where the dipstick's at, but I had it right here. Well, someone else had it right there and I just left it there. But all that's unhooked and I'm going to pull that up. Now, you do have a ground wire right there. That's your main battery ground wire. I was going to take it off, but I can't get it off. So I'll show you how to remove that from the top. And then over here, there's our oil level sensor that goes in that hole right there, which I've got just dangling right here. I'm going to unbolt that and pull that up from the top. And then I took out the cross member. Wow. Took the cross member completely out. I put the bolts right back where they were. I took the shifter linkage off, stuck it back there. Now, if you got the 60E, you know, you got the connection on the side of the transmission over here for the main connector. You got to take that out. And again, there's some wires under the dash on the passenger side you can unhook. And then you can just pull the computer out and set it right on top of the motor and all this will come down together. But since I'm down here doing stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and remove the wires and run them up there. Because I've got trans brake wires running. I've got my fuel pump hot wire kit wire, which is right there. I just looped that up and set it on top of the transmission. It was zip tied to the it comes around to this side too. See, then I got my trans brake wires. I meant to cut that and pull that down. I'm just going to pull that one down because I never even hooked it up yet. But yeah, I can't get to that torque converter bolt, but to be able to pull that wire up and here for the oil level, I have to take that transmission bolt out because I've got it bolted to that. But now, if you got the stock exhaust, there's like a cross member that goes down below the transmission. You got to take that out. Now the rear of the exhaust you can leave in as long as it don't get in the way because it'll go up with the car. If you've got the headers and the Y-pop, you do have to take the Y-pop off. And that's why I got rid of the Y-pop. Man, taking that Y-pop off and on was one of the hardest things to do when working on this car, when taking the transmission out and It's just a pain in the butt. I would like to run the exhaust back to at least the rear axle though, because there's some classes, there are some heads-up classes that require that, so I might do that one day. But I think true duals will fit all the way back through there. I mean, because that exhaust hangs down that low, that never hits. You can look at the bottom of it, it never hits. So I don't see why that pipe couldn't go all the way back to the axle and just do a turn down. Maybe bring it in, I don't know. Anyway, that's sidetrack, that's another day. But anyway, I'm gonna go cut this trans brake wire zip tie that I had holding that up there, and I'm gonna pull that down here. And I'm gonna go over and take that transmission bolt out that's holding that wire for the full level sensor. I'm gonna pull all that up to the top of the motor, maybe set it on the cowl or something like that. Now on this side, there's your O2 sensor for the driver's side, which I don't have those hooked up. This car's speed density. It don't use a lot of the sensors. It don't use the O2s and the MAF sensors. And then this is the wire, of course, for the full level sensor. I got all that connected, disconnected. That comes off the oil pressure sensor up there. I don't know if you can see it or not. I can see it, but I'm gonna unhook that and that part of the harness that go up on top of the motor. And while I got it up in there, I'm draining the radiator too. I went in and took the radiator out and the fans. You don't really have to take that stuff out. It just gives you a lot more room to work on the car. But now the brake line, or the brake lines, the battery cables. Here's your positive battery cable that goes to the starter. It goes to the starter and the alternator, actually. But I'm gonna let that go down with the car. I'm gonna bolt it from the. I'm just gonna unbolt it from here. It goes right there. Just go unbolt it from there and let it go down with the car. And then the ground cable, it bolts right there. You can see it right there. Now and then it goes into the car and bolts to the motor mount. Now I'm just gonna let that go down with the car. So that's what I'm gonna do next. Also on those battery cables, even if you're bringing the car down with the computer and the wires, those still have to come down with it, unless you unhook them from down there. But yeah, so even if you're taking out the computer, underneath the dash there's two connections that you undo, and you can put the computer over on top of the motor with the wiring harness and everything and go down together if you wanted to do it that route. But even if you, either way, either route you do it, if you can't get them unconnected from down underneath the car, they have to come out from up here. Also, there's a ground right there. Make sure you undo that one. And then your brake lines, I've got the ABS delete, but it's the same thing. Your front brake lines have to go down with the K-member. So you have to unhook the front too. You'll know the difference. The back one, it's just one big line, one big hose, metal hose, and then the two front ones are two small ones. See, for instance, right here, that's a front one, and that's the back one. Only one goes to the back, two go to the front. I've got a block in there. You can see it, and both my fronts run into that block. So I'll just take that top one off, and then I'm gonna unloosen it from the master cylinder and put it above the master cylinder so it don't all leak out of the master cylinder, so I don't have to bleed the master cylinder again, because that's a pain in the butt. But yeah, now I'm gonna do the brake line last. Oh, also, if you got a power booster, the stock brakes, make sure you undo the vacuum line, undo your throttle and throttle cable and your cruise control cable, Unhook those. Unhook your fuel lines, which I'm not going to unhook the fuel lines. I'm just going to pull the whole fuel rail out. I put that E85 sensor in there, and I put it too close. I'll never get that line off. Oh well, unless I take that coupler apart. But I'm just going to pull all that off and bring it over together. Yeah, so I'm going to work on pulling all these lines up and getting them out of the way. Alright, we got all the wires off of it. I'm just setting up there.
You go in, buddy.
We got a water temp sensor in between those two spark plugs. You got a MAF sensor plug in. You got your coil and your, if you got a stock car, you got the coil and the ICM and all that connect here and go up with that wire harness. And then over here you got your crank sensor if you got a 96, 97. You got your alternator. You got your coolant temp sensor for the computer. You got your intake air temperature that goes on your intake. You got your throttle body and your auto air control. And then your injectors. And then in the back, if you got the stock stuff, there's AR and EGR and all that crap too, but that was all disconnected off this car. Yeah, we just unhooked all that and just set it over to the side here. And then the battery cables, we unhooked those. I left the power wire hooked to the back of the starter, but you do have to take that plug-in off, and it's up here somewhere. We got a big mess there. But now that one wire going down back there, that's the booster pump, hot wire. And then this wire here, that goes to the transmission, trans brake solenoid. But that's it. Only thing left to do now is undo this steering column bolt over there. Yeah, right there. That one right there. I gotta undo that steering column bolt. And as the motor goes, as the body goes up off the K-member, it'll pull out of that. And then we gotta do these front brake lines. And then these 4 bolts on each side. And then the 3 on each side for the K-member. And I'm not exactly sure how we're gonna do all that just yet. I don't know if we should take the tires off or which ones we should undo first or what, but we're gonna figure it out. All right, so most people connect it to right here, but where I cut all that out, I don't trust it, so we connected it to the frames on the side there. We didn't have a hook on the chain on this side, so there was a hole there, so we just used a nut and a bolt. Then we raised it all the way up, which I'd already lowered the back, took the back out, and then we lowered the front, took these out, and then we slowly put it back down, and we got the two dollies, one under the transmission, one under the motor. Now we're going to take the wheels off. Alright, so here's the 3 bolts. Take out on this side. That one right there. This one right here. Then this one right here. And then there's one at the front. Right there. Those are the 3 you take out from down here. Alright. You got the strut tire bolts out. The steering shaft bolt out. Cross K-member bolts out. Up all this thing goes.
I ain't going up the cars.
Rise! There ain't nothing down there to get in the way. It should come right up. The only thing that could hit is that one wire. But it didn't get it. Alright. There we go. Whoa, 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 whoa. There's a wire over here.
Unplug it there.
So that wire's got to, the wheel speed sensors do have to come off. I took it off the other side, but I did not take it off of this side.
Suck it.
Smooth move. Then we'll watch and see if anything else. The brake lines are cleared. Now there ain't nothing else it can hit. And we already took it off the other side, so we just gotta go up high enough to. And this dolly under this K member, it's bowing something fierce. I didn't think that thing would hold 1,000 pounds because the motor and transmission ain't 1,000 pounds together. I don't think that's all. And there's two of them under there. So
how you want to go?
High enough to slide that out.
You're putting them blocks under, ain't you?
Yeah, once we get it high enough to slide it out.
It's high enough for no one there.
We gotta get it high enough to slide it out, and then we gotta put
Don't want that thing to break. Come on down.
up and away.
That's what it needs to look like. That's what it needs to look like coming off the line.
Right.
Oh, Jack broke over on me.
Yeah, it's going
Oh,
wrong.
you already had the motor out.
Well, there it is. Jack stands are holding it. That should hopefully roll right out. All right, it's out. We separated the transmission. We're gonna have to get in the oil pan to turn that around some. 'Cause I don't think. Oh yeah, never mind. We can reach the torque convertible. Yeah, you can get in there. So I'll do that here in a minute. We're taking it off the motor mounts. We're gonna lift it up in the air. We're gonna put it on the motor stand. Then we're gonna flip it over and see how bad it's hurting. If I have to buy another rotating assembly in a block, I'm probably gonna 5.3 turbo swap it. Alright. So there it is. It pulled the wrist pin clean out of the piston. And then it broke the rod.
And I give up because my phone is.
And then
I don't know.
it bent this rod.
I might get a hold of like I need one of those satellite phones.
I mean, I think the crank's fine. And
That probably all.
then here's what's in the pan. That's piston skirt. There's the piston pin. There's the rod. And then there's a piston ring in there. Piston clip. Well, there it sits, y'all. I don't know if the block's hurt or not. It looks like the crank came out unscathed. The piston's definitely hurt. I don't know if the heads are hurt, but they I need to get shorter bolts for the engine stand to be able to put it on the engine stand. I'll do that tomorrow and rip into it a little bit further. But what y'all think? Rebuild the LT1 or do a 5.3 turbo LS swap? Hit the comments there and let me know what y'all think.